Alright, if you haven't noticed, I'm playing a new game. It's a RuneScape Classic. I'm probably gonna get logged out if I don't do anything though. But I wanted to talk a bit today because I had a bit more to say, since I was joking about the Linux cast yesterday. There's this thing with Linux YouTubers, and I'm not talking about just him, I'm talking like the Linux experiment and all these other channels is because they're creatives, they're like, oh, I totally like this new Mac Mini that's like $700 and I want to use it as my editing machine. I want to replace my Linux box with this for all my creative stuff. And that's cool, because I mean, like honestly, kind of there's an idea that you need to be like free. You need to like use free software for this kind of thing. Like, so while I have some proprietary software running on my computer, the stuff I use to make my videos is all free. And honestly, it's really easy because it's OBS. But there's all these like YouTube channels, and I kind of mentioned this in earlier videos, but I was watching a Linux experiment video a few days ago, and I was like, man, everything about this video just looks weird. Like his camera focus is like way off where he's in focus, but everything else around him is like Gaussian blurred. And the camera was like really close to his face. You could like see him kind of puffed out like the Zelda CDI characters or something. So what's happened though is those kind of channels they really like they like having a lot of production quality, and I'm like, there's you're not really big enough to be doing that. you know you're not like big enough where you need like the studio level quality, because honestly the stuff you are making looks kind of amateur. So I kind of hate how YouTube fetishizes this sort of like pseudo high quality stuff, where if you're not pushing a certain level of quality, you're not in the algorithm. And people have kind of started to expect that, and that's why I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, where I just like I put out the bare minimum effort in order to get the information across. So like I don't SEO, I don't really advertise this channel anywhere. And there's a reason for that. It's because this was mainly made for friends to watch like my musings. It's not really meant to be a big channel. But one thing, or sorry, what I'm trying to get to is I try to use free software when possible, right? Because contrary to, I had a subscriber leave a, what the fuck is this? Yeah, I had a subscriber leave after my Winamp video, and that's why I had to make that other video. And he said I don't care about freedom, and to an extent, this is true. He's not like technically wrong about it, because while I use Linux and I try to use free software to make my videos, I do still have like Discord installed, even though I really shouldn't, and I still have like some social media that I really shouldn't have if I'm actual like freedom advocate. But as far as I don't know. But what I'm getting at though is these channels, they are kind of consumers. Like especially the Linux cast, I'm gonna rip into him a bit more. Is he's like constantly buying new keyboards, he's constantly dealing with like proprietary video editing software, buying new graphics cards, buying new computers. And it's like, man, you don't need to do all this, you know? You don't need all this. And because of this kind of consumer mindset, it, he used to be an Apple fanboy, right? And it's really hard to get out of that mindset. So I made a joke on Mastodon. I said, Linux YouTubers, when they find out Apple released a new proprietary lockdown product, and I had a picture of like the distracted boyfriend thing, and I think that's kind of where we're at, is Mac OS is a very locked down proprietary operating system. It data mines you, it has anti-privacy features, it's backdoored. There's so much that goes on with Mac OS. It's obviously not even comparable to Linux, even though it can run like bash scripts and it's like technically POSIX compliant. But like all these Linux YouTubers, they're pro freedom until it interferes with their workflow. And that's kind of where we're at. Is they see this new MacBook and they're or sorry Mac Mini or whatever, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna replace my Linux box for editing with a Mac, and then I can make Linux videos on Mac OS. And I'm like, okay, so you've and don't even give me the excuse that they're going to install Asahi on it because Asahi would have the same problems as any other Linux distro. You're not going to get the editing software on it. So obviously they're planning on buying a Mac with with the purpose of having a Mac, And because of that, they're not really, it's like using Windows as your editing computer, like you end up with you're close to freedom because you have a Linux box, but really you do seem kind of like a poser, you know, where Linux is cool, but oh my god, I gotta have the new fancy proprietary computer, you know, and that's kind of where we're at. So that was me ripping a bit further into these channels because I do have people that tell me that I'm not focused enough on freedom, and that I think obviously people should be held to the same standard when they decide to have a moral high ground or something for using Linux. Is Linux gets you part of the way there. Linux gets you part way to freedom, but the rest of it is using free software. And if you're doing all your editing on a Mac, what the hell? You still now you run a Mac, and it comes with all the Mac stuff. So I don't know. It's not something I think should be encouraged, because it just seems like a consumer thing, I want shiny new toy, and it's not good. All right, I think I've rambled on enough about that. That's really all I wanted to say. Thanks.